Where are the NPCs in Sea of Thieves? Does this world ever feel empty to you? Lifeless? It's crazy seeing no ships on the horizon. It's crazy walking through Port Merrick and it looks like a ghost town. Sometimes this game's vibe feels like I'm the last human on Earth, and I'm just sailing through a lifeless post-apocalyptic world. I understand that there are technical reasons why Rare cannot add more NPCs right now. However, in today's video, I'm listing the top 10 new NPCs that we need in Sea of Thieves. Number 1, soldiers. In real life, this would be the East India Company, but in the Sea of Thieves canon, it would be the Grand Maritime Union. I would love to see redcoat soldiers patrolling Port Merrick. Imagine if these soldiers worked just like the police in GTA. Imagine if you could rob NPC ships, but this would cause soldiers to become more hostile towards you. They would start chasing you if you sailed past them, and if you have a bounty on you, then the soldiers would start trying to arrest you on outposts. Imagine missions where you could get captured and then have to break out of prison. What if your ship could get captured like how your car can get captured by the police in GTA? Or imagine if you could rob the bank on Port Merrick and the soldiers would chase you. Number 2, NPCs on outposts. This is the strangest design choice in the game. Port Merrick looks so cool, but it's literally a ghost town. I know moving NPCs might be too difficult to add, but I think they could still add more stationary NPCs, like people passed out at the bar, or people taking a nap around the island. Maybe even just someone standing still fishing. It's just so bizarre walking around these outposts and seeing no one on the island, and not a single ship docked around the outpost. I think a lot of veteran players are just used to this, but I think the emptiness is very jarring for a lot of new players trying out the game. Imagine how fun this game would be if we had GTA-style NPCs. At first, I assumed that the reason why we can only harm skeleton and ghost NPCs is because Rare wants a rating for the game that's safe for kids. Except then I realized that you can literally kill and rob real players who look like humans. So I think that means it must be only technical limitations that are stopping Rare from adding more NPCs right now. Number 3, merchant vessels. For a pirate game, isn't it weird how you can't do the most basic act of a pirate? That would be robbing merchant NPCs. Of course you can battle one of the 2 skeleton ships in the game. You can also rob Merchant Alliance emissaries, who are basically role-playing as civilians for you to rob, but they'll call you toxic. But I think we all wish there was more NPC ships on the seas. NPC ships to either rob, or even just to look at so the ocean feels more lively. And these ships don't even have to be moving, they could simply be docked at an outpost. Isn't it weird how there's no NPC ships docked anywhere? I think at the bare minimum this would make the Sea of Thieves world feel more lived in. Number 4, other AI pirates on the seas. I realized this would basically just be a reskinned version of skeleton ships, but in all fairness, the skeleton ships have been feeling old for years now. I mean, there's only 2 skeleton ships, the sloop and the galleon, and it doesn't really feel immersive when I see either of these 2 on the horizon. I think it would be way cooler if there was more unique human NPC pirate ships. I think this would make the world feel more alive and piratey, even if it was just a reskin of the Skelly ships we already have. But then again, you could also mix up the attacks. For example, I think it would be cool if the AI pirates would use ropes to swing onto your ship to board you. A lot of people complain that there's only 6 ships on a server and this leads to it feeling very empty. But I think these NPC pirates could help fill out the space a little more. Wandering Trader. This NPC could spawn in randomly on a ship or an island. Imagine if you could trade rare loot items for rare PvP supplies. Imagine being able to trade a Fort of Fortune key for cursed cannonballs. You could trade a Reaper's chest for 10 chain shot. A Skull of Siren Song could be traded for bone collars. There's a lot of players who don't care as much about gold anymore and just play the open world to fight, so I think this could be a way to keep loot items valuable. You could even make the trades be completely random so you're gambling by trading off your rare loot. You trade your chest and then maybe you get a Wraith Ball for it, or maybe you just get a single banana. I think that could lead to some pretty funny moments. Kids love gambling, so I think this would be a big hit. You could also trade loot items for things like stronghold kegs or pineapples, but obviously it would need to be balanced and not too easy to farm overpowered items. If you're worried about this NPC ruining Hourglass, then I think you could just block people from diving if they've traded in the server. If this thing was balanced correctly, I think the trader would be a really big hit. Next is a brigantine version of the Skelly ship. This seems like a no-brainer. We already have sloops and galleons, so why not a skeleton brigantine? It would be a difficulty level somewhere in between the sloop and the galleon. Next is a governor NPC for each of the map regions. I think it would be funny if you could kidnap the governor and hold him for ransom to make money. I also just think this would be a funny character to have walking around the outpost in his powdered wig complaining about pirates. You can even have one of these guys voice the character. Imagine if you could put him in handcuffs and kidnap him onto your ship. Next, I'd like to see more ghost NPCs in the Pirate Legend hideout, and more skeleton NPCs in the Reaper hideout. I think the Pirate Legend hideout would feel so much more exciting for players to unlock if they went down and saw it filled with ghosts, instead of just a couple at the bar. And for the Reaper hideout, we do have a few skeleton NPCs, but I want to see a whole army of skeletons down there. Much like the rest of the world, both of these locations just feel a little too empty and motionless. Next is NPC Crew Members. Imagine being able to spend gold to hire an NPC crew member from an outpost. Or imagine you beat a skull fort and free a sailor who is imprisoned in the treasure vault so he joins your crew as a reward. These wouldn't be overpowered, but maybe they would just do minimal things like keep your sails catching wind or help you raise anchor faster. And you could balance them by having them get killed super easily. I think this could be really fun and make the world feel more alive. Most importantly, I think solo players should get an AI crew member by default. Playing Sea of Thieves solo is miserable. You're at a massive disadvantage when fighting a duo, let alone a trio or a full 4-man galleon. Sure, you could solo a larger noob crew, but the average Sea of Thieves player could never 1v2 a competent duo. I think solo players would be happy with an NPC crewmate that would simply just help bucket their ship. Not anything overpowered, but an NPC that would help as much as a noob random fill teammate would. This game was clearly not designed to be played alone, yet you'd be shocked at how many people still play this game solo. A lot of players simply don't have friends on the game or don't want to deal with random fills. I think the punishing solo experience is why a lot of PS5 players have already quit the game. At minimum, I think giving solos an NPC crewmate who can bail water would at least allow a solo player to board a duo without their own ship sinking, and this is really the biggest PvP setback for a solo player trying to fight a duo. We already have a taste of what this update could look like with the NPC obsidian skeletons on the Burning Blade. Next, for an honorable mention, we have adding more ocean mobs. I wish we had more diverse ocean life in the game. Animals like dolphins and whales that you could see while sailing, even if you couldn't interact with them. It would also be cool to see squids, stingrays, and sea turtles when you go underwater. I think all these animals would add a much more lively feeling to the ocean in this game. And finally at number 10, we have adding some native island villagers. These people are actually a pretty big part of the Sea of Thieves lore. As you can see paintings, statues, artifacts, and campfires all over the place that point to native people inhabiting these islands. I'm sure we all love the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie where the natives are chasing the crew around the island. How cool would that be to recreate in Sea of Thieves? The only problem is that there's no way this would fly in 2024. Looking back, there's no way they could release Dead Man's Chest today without major backlash. Still, we know that developers have always taken massive inspiration from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise since the very beginning of this game. And with the last update, we even saw them add the blowpipe, which was probably inspired by the natives in this movie. Just think about how cool it would be to have islanders chasing you and shooting blowpipes. In the past, games could add island villagers as enemies with no problem, but I don't think this would fly today. Realistically, if Rare was going to add NPCs like this and avoid backlash, they would probably take more of a temple run approach and make the NPCs more like animal, humanoid, magical creatures instead. I still think this could be cool, and I would love to steal an artifact and have all the villagers chase me back to my ship. In addition to Pirates of the Caribbean, the developers have also openly stated that they took lots of inspiration from Indiana Jones, and they even said this franchise was the inspiration for the Ancient Isles region of the map. So that's why I think some treasure heists with island villagers chasing you would totally work for this game. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to me. Thanks for watching, Captain Squiddy.